Hello. I just finished a very fascinating couple hours at the Minnesota Archives researching the St. Peter State Hospital from St. Peter, Minnesota. The records go all the way back to 1866, and I was mostly looking through 1877 through like 1881 records, 1884. I wanted to share some of the really interesting things that I found in there. It is illegal to share images from the Minnesota Archives in any kind of media, but I will show some photos of the St. Peter Hospital and then talk a little bit about some of these fascinating records that I found.
It was fascinating to read these patient case notes from the 1870s and 1880s, and obviously very sad. There was a patient named Albert who was admitted in 1878 with mania. He was 23 years old. He has acute and passive delirium. He was violent and made unprovoked assaults on other patients, and he had to be restrained for several days. 2 months later, he was still considered generally incoherent. He was taken for frequent walks and rides. The case notes said he was not medicated. Several months later, he was discharged and deemed well. It's amazing so many of these records survive, given that there was a major fire there in the 1880s. There was a woman named Ellen. She was admitted in 1877 with acute mania. She was sedated with a drug called chloral to help her sleep. It says she is mischievous and untidy and answers questions irrelevantly. No information was known about her regarding age, her origins, or her family. She was committed by a probate judge without any knowledge known beyond her name. She came down with pneumonia in March 1878, and after she recovered from it, so did her mind. She was able to tell them that her husband and family were in Colorado. After 5 months in the state hospital, she was fully recovered and discharged. There was a man named Thomas who was admitted in October 1877 with acute mania. He arrived with no age or known history. He was committed by the judge of probate for the county for fear of danger to himself and others. He is listed as quiet and seems rational. He claims he was a school teacher in Canada. He said he went to Manitoba to find a home for his family, but failed, and then was on his way back to Canada when he was arrested and kept for 3 months in jail at Fort Pembina. A few days later, he claimed to be Incan and that he was endowed with special powers so that he could do anything. He continued to become more incoherent. He claimed to know all known languages and spoke incoherently in different tongues. He was allowed to saw wood and do chores as he began to get a little better. He was able to write to his family a few months later. He then began to claim that he was a miner and he had been his whole life, and that he enjoyed doing very dirty work and being untidy. He escaped 6 months later, and nothing was ever heard from him again. The last note in the file was December 1878 and said nothing ever heard from him, officially marked discharged. I read a case file about a man named Frederick who was committed by the judge of probate in October 1877. He was 54 years old, married with 6 children, and a farmer in Minnesota. His condition was termed chronic mania due to jealousy. He ended up being at the hospital for nearly 20 years and was transferred to Fergus Falls, Minnesota in 1897. His delusions involved his wife and that she secretly married someone else, which ended up in him threatening violence. He was found carrying a butcher knife around. He ended up becoming a calm patient later on in life, but never improved. The hospital is still used today and dates back to 1866. It was the first state hospital in Minnesota. Though many of the records I read were sad and shocking, I did not come across anywhere where someone appeared to be treated inhumanely, and I kind of expected to find that given the time. Nothing like that made it into the patient notes, so I'm hoping these patients were treated fairly well. Thanks.